Welcome to resilient.com. And today in our studio, we have the winner of the Ouray 100 endurance run, Teddy Bross. Welcome, Teddy.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Like a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about what it takes to finish the Ouray 100 with David Everson, a coach from Team Run Run. And here we are a couple of weeks later talking to the winner of this pretty incredible race. You know, I had a go at it, as I mentioned earlier, as an old guy and trying to do my first 100, which is probably a stupid race to begin with. But I certainly was terrified and wanted to get out there and give it a go anyway. It seemed to me like it's like a puzzle trying to figure this thing out. But talking about you, Teddy, I mean, what an incredible run. I was at the finish with your family and we watched the clock ticking by. You still broke the record. You got a penalty due to navigation, I believe. There was a lot of issues for some people with navigation. I think a lot of us struggled with downloading the GPX files a day or two before, so I'm not surprised you had issues. We certainly did. But it's easier for us guys at the back to follow people in front. But for a guy like you who was running like a hare through the woods, I mean, it must have been a challenge. So, how was the race for you? T Tell us a bit about it and what were the challenges, including the navigation?
Sure. I thought the race itself, honestly, I was just out there having really an enjoyable experience. Loving it and really enjoyed seeing just so many wonderful runners out on out and backs and on the Ironton loops. And I was celebrating, kind of being out there and a lot of hard weeks of training, which I'm sure you also can um, the course itself was just gorgeous. What a beautiful area down in the San Juan Mountains, down outside of Ouray. And I just any chance that I can get to go down to that area, I try to make that happen. It's usually a couple of times a year and feels really special every time I'm out there. So getting to go down and race and having a good day down there was really special. And we had great, just incredible weather, right? Like
Yeah, it was great.
overcast kind of throughout the daytime, little sprinkling rain throughout the afternoon when it was a little warmer. And gosh, over nighttime, I think that cloud cover really kind of kept the temperature fairly even. So it was really nice overnight.
Did you
The whole,
expect to win?
I'm sorry.
Did you expect to win the race?
Um, I have a coach and we had talked about, I've come close on several races of actually winning, but so we did talk about it. He actually kind of put a little pressure on me. I was trying not to put pressure on myself, actually. I was kind of like, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna have a good time. And he was telling me, I could have a good day, I could win, trying to really I don't know, help me believe in myself, I think, in that regard. And I mean, just like everybody else, I mean, if you look at my crew setup, I was planning for a really good day, but also had plenty of backup, clothing and gear. And I've spent plenty of time out in mountains. And so I know that not everything goes to plan always. So I was prepared to have a 52-hour day if it came to that, or a day like I had of 29 hours, which was just really special.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a 52-hour day. Let's put it in perspective. You were done 23 hours ahead of the cutoff, Teddy. I mean, I couldn't believe it standing at the finish, like thinking, wow, this guy's just finished the race and they're going to be people out here for another day and a half and a night. It's like unbelievable. Did you struggle at all? I mean, how hard was this race for you? You talk about it like, oh, it's a walk in the park, and you look pretty tired at the end, but I mean, for those viewers here and guys like me that are the sort of back of the pack kind of guys in a race like this, how do is it really that easy for you or how hard is it?
Goodness. No, well, I do think that mindset plays a huge role. And you had mentioned the navigational kind of penalty, and that is something that weighed really heavily on my mind, especially going around the Ironton loops. I had kind of volunteered that information to the race directors, and we were trying to figure out what was going to happen, and spent quite a bit just kind of chatting with them at the Ironton aid station. Essentially, I had the GPS on my Gaia, and when I didn't see any flags, kind of going up the Richmond Pass Jeep Road, which was kind of on the course description there. I kind of knew from spending quite a bit of time actually learning the route just through materials online from the race website that that area was something that the Jeep Road itself wasn't going to be too easy to get up. It talked about loose scree and talked about loose boulders. Um, but when I didn't see any flags, I must have checked that Gaia map like 10 different times in all honesty, going up that route. And even put up a second source looking at the spot map and found that that also correlated with my Gaia map. And so I honestly thought that I was just on course the whole time. It turns out that that was a route that was used a couple of years ago, and they changed it last year, I think was the first year that they went up the Richmond Trail.
Mhm.
Um, and it just hadn't gotten updated yet on the official course GPX, so they had sent out the new file the night before the race. And so when the race directors kind of learned that, we both were trying to decide like how to go about making it a fair situation. And they assessed a 10-minute penalty. I think it's one of those things that was a shared mistake kind of between the two of us. And I felt so supported by them. While I was waiting for that decision, I was going around an Ironton Loop and had my mind really focused on whether or not I was going to be able to keep running or if they were going to disqualify me. And,
Mhm.
um, I think all in all, the route itself that I took ended up being a little bit longer. It was poor footing. I spent quite a bit of time talking with them at the aid, and then also the 10-minute time that they added on to my overall time ended up just being, quite a bit of an add-on just to the day.
Yeah.
I really think that the rest of it, I was out there with a joyous mindset. I really enjoyed being out in the mountains, and you asked if it was easy. I definitely don't think it's easy to race anything like that.
Just that you make it look easy, Teddy.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how sore, well, really how painful my quads were. Kind of probably about mile 80, 85.
Mhm.
I was really actually feeling quite a bit of pain every time I was, running downhill and still trying to accomplish that,
Mhm.
all the way to the end. And fortunately, I had, really amazing friends who were pacing me out there. And I admit that that's a huge benefit to anyone when they're out there, especially when you're running alone all day like I was, to be able to have pacers,
Mhm.
huge morale boost, just the ability to kind of get the most out of yourself. It makes a huge difference. And so I felt so fortunate to have them.
So why did you want to do this particular race? What's it about Ouray 100 that appealed to you?
Yeah, I've been looking at the race for a few years. I think I probably started looking at it more after I did Nolan's. So I did the Nolan's 14 route in Colorado, and there's a ton of up and down in that. It's up and down 14ers, and after kind of finishing that route, I just really loved and well, I guess learned that I love being in big mountains. And so if you look at my ultrasound up, like a lot of the races that I have done are big mountain races, just in the past couple years. Cruel Jewel, out kind of on the East Coast in Georgia, but also things like the Bear and um, last year doing Bighorn Mountains, doing Wasatch. I've done Tahoe, I've done Western States a couple of
Mhm.
times, done Leadville a couple of times, and so um, I just love being out in mountains. And so getting the chance to go down and pace at Hard Rock last few years. Um, the San Juans are just really beautiful areas for me to get to explore and
Mhm.
enjoy more time in. And so I actually put in for the High Lonesome 100
Okay.
lottery, and I didn't get into that and was just um, trying to maybe get up the gumption to sign up for Ouray the last couple years.
Mhm.
And so after I didn't get into High Lonesome,
Mhm.
made the jump, signed up for it, and went about trying to prepare my body for 40,000 feet of elevation gain in a race.
So how hard is this race? I mean, you've done UTMB, you've done Moab 240, you've done, Wasatch, you've done a whole bunch of races. You've had close to wins in some of those, some really good top five finishes. Talking to people, some said to me, this race is so intimidating. That's the reason they don't have to have a lottery because people are scared by this race. I mean, I'll admit I was really nervous going into this. I mean, how hard for you how does this race stack up in terms of difficulty with some of the other races you've done?
Um, Seriously difficult. I mean, the race I did over in Europe was actually the TDS route.
Hmm.
So not like the UTMB loop.
Hmm.
And TDS is kind of known for being the, I guess, the more mountainous of the two, if you could
Hmm.
even say that. A UTMB obviously is a mountainous route in its own right, but um, I mean the course is brutal. You're just going up and down the whole time. And I don't think anyone, even someone like myself who really loves big mountains, can really say that they weren't, somewhat intimidated by the course. Um, I do think that there are some things about racing that make it easier. I don't have a sponsor. I'm just out there enjoying running the same way that a lot of people are in this sport, which I think is really amazing. I have a job that gets in the way of my hobby a little bit.
You're a medical
Um,
doctor, right? So, yeah.
that's right. Yeah, yeah. So I'm an outpatient primary care doctor, and I spend a lot of time doing that. And it does probably get in the way of my enjoyment of
Mhm.
being able to go out and run up big mountains all the time, which I would love to be able to do. I do treadmill training or early morning runs, just kind of in the bike path loops, the same way that a lot of people do. But a lot of that's just consistency, trying to be able to prepare yourself to do something that you actually really love and enjoy. And I don't know, maybe there's something to that that actually makes the actual race more celebratory, more enjoyable,
Mhm.
simply because it's not something you get to do all the time.
Yeah, it's funny because I felt underprepared for this race. And what I took my takeaway was that I hadn't done enough big mountain, steep stuff. And yet you're out there training on treadmills. I mean, and with your busy schedule as a doctor, it sounds like you don't have a lot of time to go and run in the big mountains. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much just on weekends.
Yeah.
And I mean, vert is definitely something that we targeted in the lead up to actually the race. But it was more concentrated. I mean, a lot of times when people are thinking about a race like this, they're trying to mimic the vert per mile, kind of on their weekly training load.
Right.
Um, for me, it was more of kind of get in some miles, add in some fast miles during the week, and then on the weekends when I'm able to take a little bit more time and my wife puts up with me going out for many hours, um, then trying to stack up some pretty hefty runs. And so even on those routes, trying to run especially the downhills a little bit faster than I would obviously in the race
Mhm.
just helps with some of that eccentric loading, really trying to pull in some of those principles of getting the muscle adaptation so that even when my quads are sore at mile 85 and don't really necessarily feel good, that I can kind of still keep moving.
Does your background and training as a doctor help you in any way in your race prep? Do you think it helps you understand nutrition and the physicality side of it more?
I mean, I want to say yes. I don't know. There's kind of a saying in medicine that if you treat yourself, that you have a fool for a doctor and a fool for a patient, because you're both. And so maybe from that perspective, I like to think that, I know a little bit more than the average bear, and that's helpful to me. Um, that's still one of the reasons though why I have a coach is that he's a great friend of mine, Matt Urbanski through Team Run Run. And a gentleman who I've been working with since 2017, who knows me intrinsically, knows things that I've been through. Like he coached me all the way through when I was in medical school, when I was in residency. And
Wow.
gosh, I look back at some of those training logs, and nothing that I do now has holds a candle to what I was having to do to just try and get in some running when I was in those training environments. So um, I think that having an outside perspective is really valuable to me. We have a little bit more of a back and forth conversation oftentimes, and so maybe from that angle, it is helpful. I probably maybe even push through some injuries that I shouldn't as much. If I had someone else telling me what was going on, maybe I would take myself a little bit more seriously. But I usually kind of say like, "Oh, that's a tendonitis. I know how to deal with that." And I'm really good about doing PT, but maybe not so good about holding myself back and accountable or taking a rest maybe when I need it.
Sounds like you're a gifted athlete based on the training you do and the fact that you work in so much. As I was coming down the bottom of Richmond and you started coming up, and I said to you, "Hey, you're in the lead or something." I was thinking, I wonder what he's thinking about these poor suckers near the back of the field when he's already 16 point whatever it was, 17 miles ahead of us. What were you thinking about us poor guys suffering at the back? Are you just like, oh, shame, poor guy?
I admittedly I wasn't thinking shame at all. I've been there. If you look back, I my first 100 was Leadville, and I finished that thing in 28 hours and 40 minutes plus.
Mhm.
And I've been out there at the back for a really long period of time. And I think that in many ways that's harder. You're just constantly trying to move and go forward and troubleshoot. And I probably learned a lot more about ultra running during those years than I'm learning right now. Now it's about, moving a little bit faster and how do we switch up this amount of carbohydrate intake. But gosh, I was celebrating everybody. Well, trying to. Maybe I didn't give you a big enough shout out, Paul, when I was out there. But I was giving people hugs. Like this woman was coming down. Actually, when I was going up Richmond, and she did not look well, and I just kind of had a smile on my face, and I saw that she when wasn't really returning that, and we ended up kind of like having an exchange on the trail where it was quite narrow, and I just kind of like gave her a big old hug during that, and kind of told her to keep
That's
moving, get to Ironton. Her crew's going to take good care of her, and
yeah, that's
um,
awesome.
yeah, I just I love and respect everybody out on the trail, kind of regardless of the time and duration that they're out there. And maybe it just grows and gets more so the longer that we're both out there.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So obviously now you've tasted success. If you were giving advice to somebody mid-pack or somebody like me towards the back, what would your advice be on this race for somebody just trying to finish?
Sure. I think that just trying to finish the race, part of that is maybe going a little bit easier on the downhills. The eccentric load from that is quite hefty. That starts, I think, in training. Maybe just doing some step ups or step downs on like some boxes after doing a training run, just to fully mimic a little bit more of that eccentric load from the race. Um, doing a couple of back-to-back mountain days, that's helpful.
Mhm.
But on actual race day, all you can do is just kind of prepare for what you're given on that day, and then troubleshoot, troubleshoot, troubleshoot. It's like something pops up, make a small adjustment and move forward. I think a lot of that is mindset, and maybe something that kind of accrues with more ultras. You see, there are plenty of guys who run up against cutoff times, but they will consistently, kind of make it or push through. And part of that is just, being out there more. And I think you told me that was your first 100. And so I think from that perspective, all I would maybe recommend for you, Paul, is keep going, keep getting out there, go out and sign up for another 100-mile race this year. And if you want to make it another big old mountain race like Ouray, do it. If you want to try and maybe give yourself a little bit less adversity with the uphill or really downhill, I think, then go for that. But I'd love to see you sign up for. I don't know. Do you have another race that you're already signed up for?
I think I'm coming back next year to Ouray. To me,
Okay.
it was like trying to unlock this puzzle, and like understanding.
Yeah.
It was so daunting on the start line. I mean, I never been that nervous for a race, and then once you get in there and you see like what it is that you got to do, I think I understand so much better what it's going to take to do this race. And I felt like going in, I felt like I wasn't prepared enough. But it was like, I've gone all this trouble to get in there. I might as well give it a go because I'm going to learn something anyway, which I did. I learned a lot, even though I didn't get through the whole race. So I
Oh,
can
I think
bring
you
that
need it.
into next year, and like lessons learned. And now I know, like, oh, yeah, what's the tunnel like or whatever summit of this mountain and that mountain. But I guess I did the easy half or part of the easy part of the race. So I got to learn the hard part, which is the second half, I guess. But yeah, I mean,
Felt a little steeper on the second half for sure, but
yeah.
like to your credit, part of that is just you know, um, breaking the race up, moving up and down the mountains, and once you get down low, setting your goal as just the next high point that you're getting to, because so much of it is again just kind of breaking it down mentally and trying to figure out how
Mhm.
do I go from where I'm at to, my next checkpoint, my next goal.
Mhm.
It's almost impossible, I think, to stand on a start line and say I'm going to run 100 miles. I don't think I've ever said that to myself. I kind of say I'm going to run from here to Lower Camp Bird. That's
Yeah.
that was my mindset on the start line, and you just do that over and over and over. And I think you have to do it that way. So in the same way that you kind of said, yeah, I'm going to go back to Ouray next year. You do exactly the same thing. You set your sight on, all right, start line from here up to Camp Bird. Once you get to Camp Bird, move up and you say, okay, I'm going to make my way up the trail further to the next high point.
No,
I think
that's what my
the
coach
way.
David said, go from aid station to aid station. Definitely. That's good advice. So yeah, I mean, what about, I'm really curious to learn a bit about your nutrition strategy because I mean that's so big in a race like this. And yeah, nutrition. Let's talk nutrition. To me, that seemed to be like one of the most important things, obviously mind and physical, but the nutrition side. What's your sort of philosophy on nutrition in a race like this?
Nutrition in ultras is always funny. You get to a point, you're going to have a great race, you're going to nail the nutrition, and all right, at the next one, I'm going to do exactly that same thing. And you go and do it exactly the same thing, and then you vomit at mile 30. It's like, so, so that's kind of been my experience with it. I had a great day. In training, I was doing a lot of the higher carb training on my longer runs, trying to do about 3 gels an hour. I'd say that's probably somewhere around like 110 grams of carbs an hour. And at Quad Rock, which was a 50-mile race that I had done leading up to Ouray,
Yeah.
I did not have a good nutrition day. I made it to about mile 35 with that same process. I was doing about 2 bottles an hour. I was doing, 110 to,
Mhm.
maybe 115 grams of carbs an hour. My stomach, I was so nauseous in the final 15 miles of that race. I threw up.
Hmm.
Um, I, I think I scarred a young child in that race because I was walking out of an aid station and I just projectile vomited right in front of this small kid. I felt so bad. Um, and so kind of in between Ouray or Quad Rock and Ouray, it was going up to big mountains and seeing kind of okay, dialing back maybe a little bit of the carbohydrate intake. I knew from doing Nolan's 14 that when I was up high that my stomach didn't do as well with food, and so I ended up switching things up. I dropped down to about 2 gels an hour. I just kind of increased a little bit of the
Mhm.
um, carbohydrate. I use scratch powder in my bottles,
For
and so
carb and electrolyte for both.
yep, yeah, yeah. So it's
Full
a
scratch. Yeah.
electrolyte powder with some carbohydrate in it, and
Right.
um, ended up doing like 1.5 scoops of that instead of just one in each bottle. And I think maybe my sweat rate is not as high, but it's fairly concentrated. And so the little bit higher concentration of electrolytes, a little bit less carbohydrate intake paired with the higher altitude was a good mix. And I ate all day, Paul. I was just eating gels and drinking fluid. I did some, yeah. So my crew, my wife Haley, who's 25 weeks pregnant now.
Yeah. Oh, congrats.
She was out there with my dad and my Aunt Kathy, and then my buddy Jeff and friend Megan. Like they were all there getting a lot of things together for me every time I would come in. Something that we did was we made little backpacker meals, so like rice meals or pasta, just
Hmm.
add water, kind of a thing. And I
Hmm.
would probably take 4 to 5, big hunkin' spoonfuls of that at each of the aid stations. Just trying to get some solid food in with some extra calories, settle my stomach while I was low because each of the aid stations were low, and then using more of the gels and liquid fueling when I was out on course and getting up higher.
So this strategy, how did that work at places like Richmond and Camp Bird? Did you have your family at those places, or were you just, what did you eat there? Because,
No, yeah, I just didn't take any solid food there. I just moved quickly through those aid
oh,
stations.
okay.
Yeah, so like at Lower Camp Bird in Richmond, which those volunteers were amazing. I had like, such great interactions with them out there. I had people just so excited to see me at each of those aid stations coming through the first time and coming back in multiple times after that. I love the volunteers. They were just wonderful.
Amazing, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they're incredible. So much energy, so excited, and so many. I don't know if you saw this, but several of the volunteers from aid stations were outpacing people later on in the day. They're outpacing friends, so they would volunteer all night at an aid station, get like a couple hours of sleep, and then go out and pace one of their friends up a 4,000 foot incline. It was just it was a great environment. I love that.
Okay, so Teddy, talking about nutrition, and you were saying how you had, family helping you, and that was one of the puzzles for me as a, newbie to this race was like, I ate at Richmond. There was a wonderful breakfast there. You could almost have pancakes and eggs and bacon. Their volunteers are incredible. In fact, the whole race organization was amazing, considering the logistical challenge of everything in all these different places. But that was the thing that I wasn't sure of was, like you, I had a plan of carbs per hour and 75 milligrams an hour, and everything was planned out. But what I noticed is when I got to like Richmond, like, there was plenty of the one product, the Scratch electrolytes, but there wasn't a carbohydrate. So you had to mix your own. And so, what do you do? Like, how do you carry enough to get through all those sections before Ironton? I mean, are you mixing where are you carrying all your mixed drinks if you're drinking that many bottles an hour? That's what I'm curious. Like, is it a magic juggling act I'm missing out on here, or how do you do that?
I guess it is kind of a juggling act, but
Yeah.
mainly just because you're wearing a vest and you just have gels stuffed in every pocket you got. But that's that was the long and the short of it for me was just carrying gels and stashing them. I actually I wear a pair of shorts that actually have a built-in waist belt as
Oh,
well. So
okay.
shout out to my buddy Alex King who has this brand Terragnota,
Oh,
which really makes some great, really very affordable, great kind of quality product. And the waist belt is fantastic. So I had gels in my waist belt, I had gels in my pack.
okay.
And it was nice not to have to worry about. So I use Scratch just in my training, and
Hmm.
because that was out on course, that was also really helpful. I did carry a couple of Scratch packets with me, just in case. I think I only used one of them, kind of in that section before we saw crew at mile 27, and
Hmm.
that's just because I was filling bottles up with Scratch in the aid stations.
Hmm.
The one packet that I used, I think I refilled a bottle from a stream. I just had a filter bottle that I carried with me.
Hmm.
Um, so I would do a little bit of water in between as well, but pretty minimal.
So you
The
actually took the time to stop and take the powder sachet out and mix it with a bottle of water. Okay, that's what I was curious about. Like at the pace you're going, I would be thinking like, oh, this guy's not even stopping for anything. So you
Yeah, I don't know, it just kind of necessitates that a little bit.
sure.
I also think that the risk of dehydration at altitude, like all the effects of altitude get worse when you're running low on fluids. And so
Right.
for me, it was more of a priority to try and maintain that, especially up high. I did a lot more liquid up higher, and then as I would get lower, did a
Hmm.
little, I was kind of hitting more of the fuel and trying to be consistent there. So, the gels that I would use, I just practiced a lot with those while I was in training. And
Hmm.
in training, I was still doing, a gel every 20 minutes, and then actually for the race, backed it off to once every 30. So a higher kind of carb intake while I'm training, just to kind of prepare the stomach a little bit there. And then, backing that off a little bit because the altitude and race day, actually, I find for me is a little bit helpful. I know that there's, kind of huge carb revolution, and maybe on like a flatter, faster course, I would try a little bit more carb intake, but I don't know. For me, it worked so well that day. I don't think I would have changed a thing. Um, the gels that I was using tend to be quite a bit of the cis gels, the
Hmm.
science sport
Yeah.
gels. So I use the combination of like the isotonic gels as well as the beta fuel gels, and I just kind of alternate each one of those.
Uh-huh.
The isotonic gels just being a little bit lighter from the carbohydrate intake, and I was
Right.
taking more of those up high.
Hmm.
And then the cis beta fuels, I was taking more of those just kind of lower in altitude. So worked out pretty well from that perspective. I had a bag of I think like 10 gels that I just had stuffed in the back of my pack. And then the rest of them were just kind of stuffed in the accessible areas. So when I came through that Richmond aid station the second time, that's when I switched out and I pulled the gels out of the back of my pack just to go back up and over the pass to Ironton.
So yeah, lots of ideas and strategies in this game. And as you said earlier, there's no guarantee. Like what works today in a week's time might not work the next week. And the nature of ultra running, right? Anything changes. The weather changes, your stomach changes, the heat and the climate, there's always variables to deal with. And that's kind of how you roll, right? As you go along, you're trying to get the perfect race together. But usually there's something that doesn't go perfectly and you have to work through it, which is what we do
Yeah.
out there, right?
Yeah, that's the point. If
Yeah. Yeah.
if it was just a track running loops, I don't think that it would be I don't think it would feel as
Mm.
I don't know, as gravitational for me. Part of the reason why I think I keep coming back and keep doing the 100-mile races is because there's so many things that end up going wrong.
So
It's like
you're not going to do any backyard ultras soon, huh?
um, I don't rule it out. I'm never going to say I'm not going to do something. But it definitely, I have friends who compete in the backyard ultras. I'm from Ohio.
Uh,
I know a guy named Harvey Lewis. You might have heard of him. And I find the way that people do those races very intriguing because there are variables there. You have to make decisions. There's a lot of logistics, and even something like I have several friends who run 24 hours on a track.
oh,
Doing a 24-hour track race, people would look at that and they would say, oh, like that would be so easy. You're just running loops. People
yeah,
forget that, the biggest variable that you take with you everywhere you go is your own mind. And when they get onto the track,
yeah,
I think that that gets forgotten a little bit is no matter, how convenient all the other variables are, actually running on a track becomes incredibly difficult, especially around 2 o'clock in the morning when you've been doing it all day long. So I think that exactly what you had said, the reason that we do a lot of these races ends up being simply because it's so hard to ever get a perfect race. And maybe you try and chase that a little bit, but also it's just the idea of being able and learning to test yourself in those situations that I think actually becomes the rewarding part of it. It's kind of like making an adjustment on the fly.
right.
The imperfect race maybe is the perfect race in a 100-miler.
Yeah, so let's talk about future. I mean, you're obviously an incredible talent. You came out there and won one of the hardest races on the planet, they say. So there's something special about you. I don't care what you say, we know there is, because when we saw you at the finish. You were tired, but you still looked amazing. What do you want to do? Are you going back to Ouray? Are you defending your crown there? Do you have other big plans? I mean, you don't have a sponsor. It sounds like you should be a sponsored guy. I'm kind of surprised you're not, but is that something you want to do? Do you want to get more serious in the sport, or is medicine your calling? Share a little bit about what you think of the future and your plans.
Sure. Well, I'm signed up for Run Rabbit Run 100. We'll get to see kind of how, body recovers and translates to that. I'm excited to go back there. I raced that in 2018, but it was the same year that I also had a surgery on my ankle and
Oh, wow.
kind of came back from that
Hmm.
surgery at the end of, January, and then trained it up and was basically learning how to walk, then run. And it was, anyone who's experienced casting of a lower extremity just knows that there's so much that goes into recovery from that. So I'm looking forward to going back to that race and maybe having a good day there. I think that would be a lot of fun. We'll see if I vomit at mile 30 doing the same nutrition plan, of how quickly things go south. But that's the part of it. That's part of it. And the enjoyable part for me too is just to kind of see, well, what do I have on the day? I don't really see myself being a sponsored guy. I think one of the reasons why I love running is it is so different from what I do on a regular basis day to day. I'm really passionate just about helping people
Hmm.
and caring for people, whether it's in my clinic or, gosh, I have so many family and friends and people who, ask, hey, I got this rash. What do I do about this? Or I've got, this injury. What do I do here? And
Uh-huh.
um, being able to provide people some direction, that I would agree with you. That feels like my calling. That's what I really love to do. And
Hmm.
then going out and running is, that's freedom, man. That's just getting out and being able to enjoy it and um, push my body rather than have to
Hmm.
feel so much kind of obligation to a computer. So I think from that perspective, I'm really looking forward to just keep running as an enjoyable celebration for me.
So that's great. And there's nothing like you've had some close or top fives in some races. Any desire to go back to any of those races to try and win them? Or you just like,
Yeah,
yeah, I tried it, done that, whatever.
it's a great question. I went back to I've only done a couple of races, like repeated a couple of races, I should say, and
Hmm.
that's Leadville and Western States. All the other ones are all,
Hmm.
newbies to me, and I think I like that part of it is just kind of enjoying a new challenge.
Hmm.
I only went back to Leadville because it was the first 100 miler I ever did, and I didn't really train for that one specifically. My dad and I walked the Tahoe Rim Trail, and I went
Ah.
and raced Leadville 2 weeks after that. So I was in hiking shape and not so much in running shape. And gosh, when you get into Western States, you go. So I've done that race fortunately twice. My last one was in 2019. I'd love to get back to that race and just feel the catastrophe that the heat does to your body at the finish line for that race. It's crazy. Even Ouray. I mean, my quads are still sore from Ouray, but it's a different kind of exhaustion running in the heat in those races. So I think I would go back. There's several races that I loved and I would enjoy repeating. I
So
don't think exactly.
Ouray, are you in for Ouray again?
Oh yeah, it's a
Oh yeah.
great question.
Yeah.
I think my answer to that would be probably following the Hard Rock lottery since they're so close.
Uh-huh.
If I got into Hard Rock, I think I'd have to take it. I've been putting in that race now for 7 years and would really enjoy getting to go race it. And I don't think I could do both. I'm not. There are some people who probably could do both, but and maybe there anyone
Yeah, there was a
who
guy that did Hard Rock the weekend before. Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
That's incredible. See, I don't think that that's possible for me. I just so I think if I got into Hard Rock, I would be compelled to race that. Like we had talked about towards the beginning of this conversation, there's a smudge on that race for me, and so I wouldn't mind going back to Ouray again. I love running in the San Juans, and I just have to maybe distance myself from how sore my quads are a little bit right now before I commit to
Mhm.
going back and saying I would do that again. Maybe in December though, if I don't get into Hard Rock, that would be far enough away for me to hit the sign up button again. Because it really is it was a special kind of a feeling, just the people there, the way that the race just has a couple of cones for a finish line. I love that. It's just so down to earth and you're only there. The people who are running that race, who are the organizers of that race,
Mhm.
they're only there because they just love that challenge in sports so much. And that's a pretty pure way to go about racing a 100 miler. So
Oh,
I don't think I could go wrong
yeah.
going back.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think what an incredible bunch of people. And I think Hard Rock was always something I wanted to do it, but I did notice like it's now doing live streaming. It's changing. I mean, it's becoming, Uray's sort of old school almost in comparison now because Hard Rock's got a lot of live coverage and, it's become a much more celebrity style race than like Western States is. And yeah, there's a lot of people that told me, well, you're right. The reason I want to do it is because it's like old school, two traffic cones and no frills, no big finish line or anything like that. So,
And I've been drawn a little bit more to those style of races. I
yeah.
mean, when I did Cruel Jewel, it was pretty great. The race director just, dug their heels in the dirt and drew a line across the dirt road, and that was the start.
It's great.
And
Like the
they just kind of
Barclays.
said, "Ready, set, go." That
Yeah.
was how they started the race. There wasn't any big thing
Uh-huh.
about it. So I those are more the style races that Wasatch kind of feels that way. It's kind of an old school style race. They definitely have a little bit more notoriety just because they've been doing it for a long time. But like it still felt like an old school style race doing Wasatch. So I don't know. I love just kind of being out there and running with people, and what a great way to get to do that. Yeah, I think if I ended up back at Ouray again, that would be a great celebration to go do it again.
I have a suggestion for you, Teddy. You like hard stuff. I thought maybe the Barclay would be good for you.
Oh my gosh. Funny thing, I've actually crewed at the Barkley before. That's a whole other side of ultra trail to me is I've definitely crewed at more races than I've run. Crewed and paced and just being able to help friends and family go out and enjoy a race. That's something that's incredible to me. And I did crew at the Barkley, which it's a surreal thing when you are awake at 2 o'clock in the morning hearing taps. It's kind of a wild experience. Um, but I don't know. All races are intriguing to me, Paul. If I ended up at the Barkley, I guess maybe I'll try and be better at navigating than I was at Ouray.
Yeah, well, Teddy, thank you so much for joining us at Resilient today. Congratulations again. You smashed it. Yeah, despite all the navigation stuff, you still smashed it, and that was an incredible time you ran. And we're going to be following you closely and see how you're doing. And really appreciate, all that you bring to the sport and just a wonderful group of people and for making that event so unique and special. So thank you for joining us today.
Those are kind words, Paul. Thank you so much.
We'll stay in touch. Take care.